Good afternoon, everyone. We'll be shortly starting with the webinar. We are waiting for some participants to join in more. Let's get started. Good afternoon, everyone. Very happy to host you here at Grant Thornton Bharat's webinar on Experience the Future of Organizational Transformation and Global Benchmarking with EFQM. Thanks a lot for taking out time to join this webinar, and I hope you'll have an insightful experience over the next 1 hour. I am Sumedha Kayastha, and I'll be the moderator for the session today. Grant Thornton is a leading global organization providing assurance, tax, advisory, consulting, and technology services to its clients across sectors. We have presence in over 140 countries and have more than 60,000 professionals with us. This webinar is conducted in collaboration with EFQM. EFQM is a non-profit organization established in the year 1989, based out of Brussels, Belgium. It was established with an aim to promote excellence within organizations across Europe. Today, this is one of the leading tools to drive organizational improvement and excellence journey and has already been adopted by more than 50,000 organizations. Today, we have senior leaders joining us from Grant Thornton and EFQM, and we'll be talking about the need of transformation in this dynamic scenario and how do EFQM address this, make us future ready. The entire discussion will revolve around how does business excellence framework EFQM help us for sustainable development and bring holistic changes in the organizational transformational journeys. I request all the participants to please post their Q&A in the Q&A section that you'll be able to see on the bottom of your screen. It's my pleasure to introduce our esteemed panelists today. Please welcome Russell Longmire. Russell has been CEO of EFQM since late 2018. He had led large-scale change and transformation initiatives across organizations of varied sectors. As a partner of KPMG, IBM, and PwC, he has worked with some of the leading organizations, advising them on managing changes that were due to technology, changes that were due to market disruptions, or maybe some regulatory pressures. He's a qualified organizational consultant and an executive coach. He is also an experienced non-executive director and on advisory board for a lot of startups. I welcome Russell. We also have with us today Rahul Kapoor. Rahul is a partner with Grant Thornton and he leads the firm's consulting practice. With over 19 years of professional experience, Rahul is a chartered accountant who brings in diverse functional expertise have assisted clients in setting up shared service centers, helping organizations do business planning, growth strategy, process validations, and operational improvements. Not only this, he has worked across varied sectors and geographies. To name a few, this includes US, UK, Italy, Kuwait, Egypt, and many more. He was also recently awarded the Global Leaders in Consulting Award by the Consulting Magazine and the Management Consulting Award by the CEO Today magazine. Rahul has actually seen the firm grow from 70 to 4,000 professionals and from 2 offices to 16 offices nationally. I welcome you, Rahul, to this session. We also have with us Nitesh Jain. Nitesh Jain is an associate partner with Grant Thornton, and he's leading the business excellence practice of the firm. He is an expert in leading and strategizing performance and operational excellence programs for various customers. Over 20 years of experience, he has delivered more than 300 projects by conceptualizing strategies and laying down frameworks in the organizational cultural change, leadership decision-making, and much more. His expertise span across a lot of business excellence frameworks and methodologies. To name a few, this includes EFQM, CMMI, ISO, MBNQA, Lean Six Sigma, and much more. Coming to the sectors that he has expertise in, he has expertise working with manufacturing, retail, IT/ITES, healthcare, and BFSI. Welcome, Nitesh, to this webinar session. We also have with us today Anirudh Chakravarti. Anirudh is a director with the firm and he holds a total of 27 years of experience, out of which 19 years he has been a dedicated consultant on business transformation engagement. He calls him a passionate qualitist with multi-dimensional expertise ranging from business excellence models such as EFQM, MBNQA, Lean Six Sigma, TPM, TQM, and the list goes on. He's a certified EFQM assessor, advisor, and trainer. He's a certified Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belt and a Lean Sensei. His vast experience include advising, assessing, and training organizations across all these multiple disciplines. His expertise as a coach and mentor has enabled a lot of organizations, a lot of client organizations to successfully complete 700 improvement initiatives and achieve financial gains of more than INR 500 CR cumulatively over the last 19 years. Welcome, Anirudh, to the session. I see we'll have a large list of participants joining in. I welcome all the participants once again to take out time and join this webinar. So I now request Russell. Russell, I would love to hear from you. Why do you think transformation is the need of the hour? Why is it important for organizations to plan for it?
Thank you, Sumedha. What a great panel we've on today, and welcome everybody. It's a very miserable time here in London. We have consistent rain, so I'm hoping you're all enjoying the weather there. I think, you know, at the heart of everything at the moment is our new model. The biggest change from the old model was the understanding from every organization that they were having to change and transform every single day. And those could be small changes, large changes. And I think what we wanted to do was make sure that our model recognized that. Companies today cannot just be good at what they're doing today. They have to be planning for the future. They have to be anticipating what their stakeholder wants, their markets, the mega trends. And that's really why I think EFQM adjusted our model in 2020 to be very much reflective on the change that's going on across organizations.
Yes, I think you rightly said today the world is changing at such a fast pace that we cannot talk about even next week. It's changing every moment. You rightly said that, Russell. So how do you think, you have mentioned about that you brought a lot of changes in the EFQM model, and would you like to enlighten the audience on the changes and how does it today addresses the need for sustainable organizational improvement?
Yeah, that's a great question. As you mentioned at the start, we've been in business for over 30 years, and our initial mission was to try and develop methods or approaches and shared best practice and insights for organizations to help themselves transform, build capability within, have a roadmap. I guess where we were 25, 30 years ago, that we were very much into 5-year strategic plans and basically bringing out the best processes in our organization, and that's how we thought about things. What we did, we got a result for. When we looked across the business landscape in the late 2019, we discovered that companies were really very much more about, why do we exist? What is the strategy we're trying to carry out? What purpose are we trying to deliver? And what's the culture? And then how are we going to make that happen? How do we create value for each of our stakeholder groups, people, suppliers, partners, shareholders, whoever that might be? How do we adapt to change? And then obviously, how do we make sure that we have a balanced set of goals, objectives, and results that we're after? And I think what EFQM does is it actually talks that very, very simple language, which is why does this organization exist? How is it going to create value for its stakeholders? And what is it actually trying to achieve in terms of results? So I hope that when we go in and make an assessment to a company, we often say they're not really assessments, they're reflection points, because you can't change, whether you're an individual or in a group or an organization, you cannot change without stopping and understanding where you are today. And that's what the EFQM models allows you to do. Stop, reflect on where you are today, and then it gives you a very structured roadmap as to where you may want to improve. And it's a choice. And I think that's probably the value that the model gives in terms of giving people an idea of the pathway that they could be on and setting new goals. So basically it's a reflection tool and then a tool to look forward and build your improvement roadmap on.
Right, I think you have raised a very valid point, and it's for importance or understanding of the people. 3 important pillars that EFQM stand on: why, how, and what. Why do we exist? How do we do that, and what we achieve out of it? Now, given the scenario and given the instances that you have quoted so far, how do you see GT and EFQM partnership contributing to this overall vision in, say, Indian market?
We operate directly in some countries as EFQM, and we operate through partners in other countries. Our partners go from South America, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, all the way through to China and Australia. And I think our vision really for India is the continued transformation of business in India, organizations in India. Huge global market, growing population, expanding export in terms of talent and capacity. And to us, India has always been a very focused market that we really want to work with. For a reasonably small company ourselves, based in Brussels, doing that on our own has a lot of challenges. And I think the relationship with Grant Thornton is really, really exciting for us. I think the team that has been built within Grant Thornton, both from existing talent and new talent coming in, is really showing the way, their absolute dedication to EFQM and the model, and how they can help organizations. And we help organizations from tiny charities all the way up to the biggest, the biggest, Saudi Aramco, companies in the world. And I think, alongside Grant Thornton, we're going to be hugely successful in India.
Thank you so much, Russell, and we hope that we take this partnership to new heights very soon.
Thank you.
Having heard Russell's view on transformation, I would like to get your views on transformation, especially in Indian context. Are we actually impacted, or domestic consumption prevents us from this need?
Well, thank you, Sumedha, and a very warm welcome to all the panelists and the attendees. I hope we're able to add a lot of value to your thought process today. Sumedha, taking on the question that you posed, I think, honestly, transformation is a very loosely defined word as of today, especially after 3 years. I think everyone's transformed in the last 3 years, whether it's a child going to a school, the school itself, how we communicate, how we commute, how we eat, how we step out of the houses, how we do business, how we look at our employment, how we look at our jobs, how we deliver on our jobs. So I can't think of a single example wherein we've not transformed. Well, what needs to be looked at is how we manage the change. And that's where EFQM comes in, right? It gives us a framework to manage change effectively and also ensure that we improve our performance. So I can list down 50,000 examples and eat up the time of the rest of my panelists. But having said that, I think, the positives of transformation, especially in the context of the Indian economy and how we project our country, is how do we ensure that we align ourselves with the global way of working and thinking, because we are attracting supply chains, we are attracting a lot of interest, we are attracting a lot of investment. I think the government's done a great job. The regulators have done brilliantly well to latch on this opportunity, whether it is services or manufacturing. There are enough examples to showcase. Now, how is it that we give confidence to the global community that we work on similar frameworks, platforms, processes, in how we evaluate our people, our competition, how we benchmark ourselves with global best practices? That's where EFQM comes in. And organizations in India who have adopted EFQM have delivered that promise at a global stage. I'm sure a few of my panelists will talk about, and in fact, we'll request Russell at the end to talk about some of the Indian clients they've worked with and how they've fared compared to some of the others. So I would leave it at that. Like I said, transformation, very hard to define, not something that you can escape, and we will continue to transform.
Sure. I think, Rahul, you have brought a perspective that is known to us, but you have put that in words. We have actually transformed over the last 2 to 3 years. Just one thought, would you like to share your views on GT-EFQM partnership in alignment to our vision of Vibrant Bharat?
Okay, so India has been shining for a long time. Bharat is developing, right? Again, I go down to my previous statement that this government has done brilliantly well in showcasing Bharat at a global stage. I'm sure a lot of the attendees understand the difference between India and Bharat. Whilst literally there is no difference, but in the context of business, in the context of internal demand, in the context of the human equity that there is and exists, a lot has to be done on the Bharat side. As organizations go global, as we attract more companies to come into India, I would again go down to the fact that we need a global framework which puts us at par with some of the global organizations. Imagine a large organization wanting to come and set up a manufacturing hub in India, right? And now they have to look at the ecosystem, develop the ecosystem. Apple's done that brilliantly well. And Apple's been operating in some of the more mature markets. And now they have to scout for talent, scout for suppliers, scout for technology, scout for even the customers that need to be converted from low-end phones to high-end phones. They need a framework wherein they will not only transform themselves and be more relevant for Bharat, but also in the same process showcase that they compete with the global organizations and at par. And hence this EFQM partnership with Grant Thornton Health goes a long way towards showcasing our vision as an organization, as a firm, which is to create a vibrant Bharat. And we will continue to contribute towards this cause with participation from EFQM. And I'm sure that in the next few years, we will see this difference as we embark on this journey of making Indian organizations more competitive, both within the country and outside.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Rahul. Nitish, I would like to hear from you. You have spent decades in the industries and have worked with various organizations. Looking at the current market dynamics, do you think the C-suite is confident enough today to take on initiatives such as EFQM? Do they come back to you with the right set of questions, or they still struggle to come up to you with this problem?
Yeah, sure, Sumedha. And thanks once again, everybody, for sparing time, hearing this out, joining us. So Sumedha, if I'll not go back too much into past here, but if you look at the trends in past 10 years alone, somehow the concept of transformation has been attempted as a band-aid solution. So I call it band-aid solution because transformation was mostly triggered by departments or functions with a mindset of demonstrating gains in that function or department alone. Or at most you would replicate it to few departments and sell it. Now, this used to be a short-term fix that could have solved an immediate problem, but never addressed the underlying issues that led to the problem at the first place itself. So at many places, it has been used as, I would call, a stopgap measure to buy time until a more comprehensive solution could be implemented. So while band-aid solutions have been necessary in certain situations, it is important to recognize that they have limitations. And to strive to implement more sustainable, effective solutions.
You're going feeble, Nitish.
For a longer run. Am I better now?
Yes.
In order to achieve I would say that in order to achieve lasting improvements, organizations need to implement strategies that address the root cause in a systematic and sustainable manner. So see this, it's like a cycle, so strategies need to translate to action plans. Action plans need to then demonstrate a viable outcome. Those outcomes must feed back to business for a meaningful insight. And those insights needs decision must be formed for a revisiting future strategy. So it's a cycle that must go end to end. Now, to be able to run this interdependent cycle, you need a disciplined approach to follow. And for a chaotic organization or an immature process infrastructure, this requirement cannot be sufficed at all. So given this, I always appreciate, and I'm an evangelist for that, is that you need a common binding force to strategize, plan, build, operate, supply, validate, and provide feedback back to the business again. And I see that most companies, those have grown fast, could have focused on business operations, expansions very well, but drastically somewhere they lack in the binding discipline required to manage the expansion while taking people, process, and technology together. So having spent years, I see that EFQM is a binding discipline to support holistic change. And the keyword I pick up from Rahul's conversation, that the keyword here is holistic. So in fact, I'll elaborate as one of the examples that one of the CXOs approached me with an idea recently on not reasoning past that addressing operational issues. When we introspected, we found that the problem lied in the planning at first, which further spilled over to forecasting itself. And then surprisingly, the requirement mismatch was at the end of US sales team in the US itself. So what appeared to be an operational issue was something else boiling down to the US sales. Now see, all this led to bleeding plant and machinery losses for years, with no one ever taking responsibility. Neither anyone could point it out. This CEO then took a staged intervention to attempt this holistic change. It took around 1.5 to 2 years for them to get to the excellence journey. And today, this company is one of the world's best producer of almonds you see on TV very often. So it's a holistic change that makes differentiation. Another company whom we worked in renewable sector had solar, wind installations across geographies, spread over, I think, many thousand acres of land which they own. And now you got a mix of full-time resources, part-time, contractual, spot laborers, vendors to work in extreme climatic conditions. The question was, how do you take care of all of them? Countless internal and external stakeholders, customers, so many customers to deal with for land acquisition, for installation, for power generation, distribution, and everything else. So we had again EFQM adoption for this company, and today they stand as world's first renewable energy company to get 5-star rating. Now the point here is to note that 5-star rating is not something to flaunt, but it is a confidence to stakeholder that things there are managed in a better format. It's a confidence to your investor, which the investor will have to say that while they are investing in your capabilities, they know that how the ground realities are being managed. So otherwise, how does an organization gain confidence in your ways of working? That's a question that we keep. So this is a global benchmark that supports it. And I say that the byproducts of such an intervention by default is improved organizational performance. We are talking of enhanced stakeholder satisfaction, better decision making, and competitive advantage. This goes and more. But all these eventually boils down to a multi-fold return on investment. So there is no point picking any transformation, as what we were talking, Rahul said that transformation has to be multi-fold, has to be multi-dimension, but there's no point picking those transformations without you have a multi-fold tangible result out of it. And that's what I think the beauty of this framework is, to bring everything as a meaningful outcome. Now, coming back to your question again, with another dimension, I'll not take too much time, but another dimension to it, that even the Indian corporations, Indian corporates today, the PSU, the governments, has an agenda of contributing to the growth of nation. That's what is the prime agenda with everyone in the air today. And there's a huge eye on foreign investment. Startup ecosystem also wish to pick foreign funds. This clearly means that we have to compete with global players in almost all sectors. And the question is, how do you demonstrate your capability? How do you ensure right strategies? How do you ensure the sustainability inculcated to your culture of the organization? For all this, you need that binding discipline, what I call is EFQ. So that is what it is. And I say that this is not late, but now is the need to jump into such adoption. Think big, think global, and differentiate your business as fast as possible. That's my simple submission. Over to you, Sumit.
Yeah, so I think Nitesh very beautifully put together. It's a holistic change binding everybody, and you need some sort of discipline to ensure that it continues not only today, but in the future to come as well. So, Anirudh, now I would like to hear from you. Today, everybody, like Rahul said, everybody is transforming, everybody is talking about transformation. How do you think EFQM actually enable transformations and make us future ready? You're on mute, Anirudh.
Yes, thank you, Samira. And thank you once again to all the participants for joining in and spending the time. Also, thank you to Nitesh, Russell, and Rahul for their wonderful thoughts and opinions that were expressed. Yes, we've been talking about the need for transformation, and I don't think there is any relevance in asking the question that do we need to transform? I mean, I think that's a redundant question, given the VUCA world that we live in, and the favorite term that is the VUCA, and everything is changing, everything is developing, multiplying. So whether you talk about automation, whether you talk about ML, AI, RPA, I mean, it's all a chaotic mix of things out there. And many a time organizations really grapple with which one do I get onto. A lot of people, a lot of senior professionals, when they talk to me, they're like, Anirudh, which one do we latch onto? There's so many out there, and everything is transformation. Everything is digitization. So do I do digital transformation, or do I do lean transformation, or do I do automation transformation, or do I do process transformation? So it's just the buzzword out there of transformation. But we need to kind of take a bit of a step back here and look at what are we talking about in terms of transformation. It's not just about transformation in the way we do things, whether we're looking at a few processes that seem to be too manually driven today. So can we do some automation in that process? Is that transformation? Or we look at a complete overhauling of our organizational structure in terms of the decision makers and the levels of hierarchy in who are going to be the decision makers. Is that transformation? Are we looking at using data, information, technology, leveraging on knowledge management to anticipate future challenges and be ready for coming times in terms of our people, process, technology capabilities? So when you talk about organizational capability, our people capability, do we have people who are ready for the future? Do we have technology that is ready for the future? Do we have processes that are capable to address future challenges? So is that transformation? So it's not about looking at any one of these things in pockets as transformation. It is all of it put together. When you talk about transformation, I talk about EFQM as an enabler to transformation. It is about looking at every aspect of organizational management in seeing how are we able to anticipate the changing trends in the ecosystem. How are we able to anticipate the changing trends in people behavior? Today there's a need for complete transformation of HR practices to align to the needs and expectations of the millennium population. Many organizations that I have assessed, and rather we have assessed together with Nitesh and myself, we have seen that HR policies, HR procedures are suited to what kind of people or what kind of expectations were there from people possibly in the early 2000s, were passed out in the early 2000s. But if you look at the generation who are passing out today in the 2018, 1920s, their kind of expectation from an organization is completely different. So even looking at HR transformation is one part which UFKM looks into. So what is important to understand is that it's not about transformation in particular departments, particular areas, but a complete holistic organizational transformation that is starting not anywhere else, but starting right from leadership and going down to the entire organization value chain, getting embedded into the organization culture, a winning habit, a winning thought process, a win-win thought process. Many organizations, the culture goes that we should always win and the world should lose. Even that doesn't work today. So when you're talking about transformation, it's even transformation in that value system, that we have to create a complete winning ecosystem. It's not that win-lose relationship that works too well in today's environment. And the entire gamut of process governance, performance governance, having structured ways to ensure that proper goals are set, goals that are addressing the future challenges, and then they get reviewed, they get kind of monitored to ensure that the right support system, the right resources. So, it just talks about the whole spectrum of managing everything in an organization in a way that we are more future ready, and transformation can be in any form. It can be in the form of just process automation. It can be in the form of change in the culture and mindset of the people, starting from leadership. It can be in the form of having your HR policies, talent management, talent acquisition, talent management, employee engagement that is more aligned to the millennium requirements rather than the previous requirements. So it has a multifold, multidimensional kind of outlook that needs to be seen at by the organizations. Now, when you come to the EFQM model itself, talk about EFQM and how does the EFQM model enable this kind of a transformational change in any organization. Let me share with the audience, the panel here, that future ready, the term future ready, is a core fundamental theme of the EFQM model. It's not something that is addressed here and there. It is a continuous thread that runs across the entire model. And if you look at the EFQM 2020 model that Russell was talking about, that it is a major makeover, major changeover from what the older model was. The new EFQM model, that the model 2020, has been designed from years of experience in changing markets. So they have been studying the changing markets over last possibly 13, 14, 15 years. And based on that experience of that changing market, this new model has been designed. And it is based on the understanding of future forecasting, the benefits of future forecasting and predictive intelligence. So future forecasting and predictive intelligence is something that is built into the model as things that an organization needs to do in order to have a more holistic transformation. In fact, if you look at the EFQM model, there is a entire sub-criterion. I will not name numbers because that won't make sense, but there is an entire sub-criterion within the execution criteria that purely talks about what the outstanding organizations do, what outstanding organizations do in order to manage organizational transformation. And a few points I'll share from them, not everything, but just a few points just to give you a flavor. That in this criterion, the insights that are provided, what outstanding organizations do to manage transformation, is that they have methods, they have approaches, they have structured, robust approaches that are developed and deployed for identification, transformation, and change needs based on the opportunities and challenges of the future. They adapt their current strategies, the current business models, create new business models, relook at redesigning organizational structure. So these are things they do. They adapt to what are the current business models, the current strategies. They look into developing new business models. They look into redefining their organizational structure to ensure that the best resources are available for the best decision making in order to overcome these future challenges and future opportunities and address the future opportunities. They establish agile workforces and they anticipate shifts in customer expectation. So these are, when we talk about making our organization future ready, transformation, and how does the EFQM enable that, or the EFQM model enable that? This is where it comes, that you have an entire criterion that is dedicated in providing you the guidance, the structure. How do you go about managing transformation for future? Agile workplaces, agile work practices, anticipation of changing customer needs, and based on that, even enhancing your customer value propositions. So in fact, in a very recent experience I'd like to share with you, we were working with one of the large power distribution companies. And in India, power distribution as of today is monopolistic. I mean, each power distribution company have their own areas and when they provide the power, and there is no competition out there. They all have demarcated areas. But a new Electricity Act is coming up, and that's where you need to be future ready. The new Electricity Act is coming up, which will give open licensing. So the same area, multiple power distribution companies can compete for the same set of customers. Now that completely changes dynamics. So while this company right now is very good at customer engagement, but the question that they need to ask themselves is that keeping a monopolistic mindset, whatever customer engagement and customer value creation that they have for today, will it work in a competitive environment? Because they are the best today. Customers love them. But will the customers keep loving them when there is competition? So even when you are the best, you still have to look into the future and see what's coming up with the new competition and see if that value creation needs to be reworked or enhanced. Also, if you look at the entire structure of the EFQM model, right, from strategic planning to leadership at every level, to stakeholder perceptions, and the use of technology and information management and knowledge management, all of it is about making yourself future ready. Because when you talk about When you talk about strategic planning, it says, do you take all ecosystem megatrends into consideration? While leadership at every level means you're grooming new leaders for the organization, leaders for the future. Positive stakeholder perception means if the stakeholders have a positive perception about you, that's about business continuity, because you become preferred partner and you have a leverage over competition. So you take every aspect of EFQM, right through the entire model. It's all talking about being future ready, looking at transformation. And finally, even as an assessor, when you assess an organization on EFQM model, there is a very significant weightage given to an organization for demonstrating its future focus. One of the attributes that you assess the organization for is its future focus. So, now enough and more.
Thank you so much, Anirudh. I think this is one of your favorite concepts, and you can talk and talk and talk a lot on this. But in the interest of time, I would have to stop you here.
Sure.
So I think you have shared some of the very valid experiences and relevant examples with the audience that we have on board today. And so far, we have had really a fantastic conversation and gained a lot of insights from each one of you. And I'm very sure that there will be many questions coming in the mind of people. So now I would be moving on to our next session, which is the Q&A session. So the first one that we have today, here they are talking about. So I would request Russell to please give his thoughts on this one. So one of the questions here is, we are talking about changes, we are talking about continuous improvement journeys, but the theme, or how do you bring this mindset change in the people to embark on this continuous improvement? You're on mute, Russell.
Great question. I would say that there's no singular way of changing mindsets. And I think the beauty of the model is we ask people those sort of questions, and they have to answer them. And they have to answer them from the perspective of all their stakeholders. So whether you're a shareholder, or whether you're a partner, or whether you're an employee, you have to be willing to say, how are we going to change the culture? How are we going to set our culture? What mindset are we after? And I think what the EFQM model does, it challenges you to have an answer for those questions. Now, in terms of continuous improvement, I think there's some fairly basic ideas, and it is the biggest challenge. If you look across all of our data, and we have got many, many data points, all observed data through assessments, the number one issue for every single company is continuous improvement. Companies are very, very good at starting things. They're very good at resourcing. They're very good at planning, and they're quite good at actually achieving the initial goal. But they very, very, very rarely do they learn, do they change direction, or do they scrap something. So they sort of carry on regardless, put it in place, and then move on to the next thing. And you'll see through every aspect of the model, every aspect of every organization, that's exactly the same thing. Continuous improvement is a real issue. There are many ways, and certainly we've got an approach to help companies with that. But you're absolutely right, it is a real mindset. You do have to change the mindset of people around, this is a continuous process, not just about going from start to finish. After finish, you have to turn, reflect, and say, what could I have done better?
Okay, thank you so much, Russell, for that. Anirudh, I would need your inputs on this one. We have one more coming up. How do you handle challenges associated with deployment of EFQM model across organizations? Or is it specifically to a particular department that is this model is applied to? You're on mute again.
Just give me that much time to move my fingers and unmute.
Sorry.
So yeah, how to handle challenges associated with deployment of EFQM model across organization. I think there is no new method. It is the age-old method of the carrot and the stick. So while there are very obvious tangible benefits to be achieved through implementation of EFQM model, things like setting up the culture that is conducive to creating a more winning organization, things like tangible outcomes like improvement in sales, profitability, stakeholder perception, which is so critical for business continuity, investor confidence, which is talked about, investor confidence. So while those benefits, and definitely one very important aspect about EFQM implementation is to give visibility to every person in the organization as to how their involvement in creating excellence in the organization is going to take the organization forward. So one thing that many organizations miss out on is that in any such implementation, it is more the senior managers who are involved, and the junior people are just kept at a task level. Do this set of tasks and just give me the outcome. So they are not included into the larger scheme of things. They are not given the visibility of how their performance, how their contribution will help the organization grow and create that culture of excellence. So I think giving that visibility, maintaining the transparency, and getting people of all levels involved in the whole transformation journey is one way to kind of overcome the challenges. And of course, when there is a willful default of not doing things that need to be done, then some amount of stick also has to be used.
Yeah.
But more of involvement is important.
Yeah, I'll also add on to this, and to address that, add on to what Anirudh talked about. See, the challenge I personally feel from all the experience that we have had implementing such adoptions, that people start overestimating in terms of the change that it brings in. So if you're talking of only this EFQM as being prescriptive, if you think that it is a framework which will give you end-to-end solution of how to do things, and you simply pick and choose off the shelf, laid down process and principles around it, then that's a challenge, because that mindset will not work. So it is a non-prescriptive framework. It is about custom building it to the context of the organization, applying it to the logical ways of practically implementing it in a given scenario, and not force fitting anything. So if that is the mindset driven by leadership, as what Anirudh said, I think every challenge is overcome that. And yes, the beauty is it involves all the hierarchies, all the layers, from top down to middle management to the people on ground, equally focused and equally being taken as contributors to the success of a larger vision and a mission that organization should aim to achieve in a given span of time. So that is what it is, and I think that's the submission I have. Thanks.
Thanks, Nitish and Anirudh. We have one more question coming up. So that's like, in this VUCA world, we are talking about being future ready. Aren't these two statements contradictory? Rahul would request you to share your views on this, please.
Sure, Sumedha. I mean, you caught me onto a good one. Yes, they're contradictory. I think when you talk about future ready, you obviously cannot predict the next wave. You cannot predict the next failure or the next big bang crash. However, if you have a framework to arrest some of these challenges, by having those processes, by having those reserves, by having the cushion, so that you take the fall, but not much is broken. I think that's what EFQM really is all about. It gives you that framework to assess your risks, to predict some form of future, to take some course corrections, and to be ready to absorb the jolt that you get from the dynamic world that we are living in. One cannot predict whether India will win the next Cricket World Cup, right? But I think the BCCI has done enough to make sure that they play with the right teams, they have the right infrastructure, they have the right coaches, and everything about the preparation is right. But then so that it's about that framework, it's about that readiness. I think we will keep hearing the lingo. VUCA will become something else in the next quarter, and so on and so forth. So I'll just pause there, because I can go on and on, but It's really about risk management.
Yeah, I think what you said, to provide that cushion so that you absorb the bolt. So it's like, on a lighter note, it's reminding me of a Bollywood dialogue, "Zor ka jhatka dhira se lage."
Absolutely.
So I think you have said it right. So Russell, we have one more. I would request you to share your thoughts, please. What could be the real impact of Chat GPT, AI, and deep learning on the way businesses are run globally?
Well, the interesting thing about ChatGPT is at the moment is it's stuck in September 2021 with its data. So when we asked it about EFQM, it came up with a very historical point of view. Like all data, and the ability we have to analyze it and produce great outcomes, it will transform business in many ways. I think, this is the first time big data has sort of hit the consumer in a big way. But businesses have been handling this type of thing for many, many years. I remember 20 years ago, when many of you will know the name Tesco, the supermarket, were analysing consumer baskets and what people were going to buy next and why they were buying them. So we've been handling data for many years. So I suspect it will have, AI will continue to change things and adapt. But I think, in terms of being able to run companies and make them run better and get them to, shall we say, get people to perform in line with mindset and purpose and culture. I don't think yet we've got artificial intelligence who quite work that out, but I'm sure it'll be a very exciting time.
Yeah.
So we'll be hoping to get a newer version of EFQM soon, consisting of all these elements.
Yes.
But I would also add on to that again. Sorry, Nitesh here, but so the automation part always has been talked about. I'll take this question in a different format as to whether this automation, AI, ML, new age technologies are going to even reduce the impact or eliminate the need for a kind of framework to be adopted. The answer is absolutely no, because these goes as a complementary services to support and add on to the implementation in a faster way, add on the implementation in a more, I would say more approachable way, and to be able to reach to the masses in a very time effective manner. So I personally treat that these technology innovation, those are happening recently. They are enablers for a fast paced adoption, or efficient ways of working, more efficient ways of working, in fact, to be brought to the ground, and then masses be pulled across so that there is an equal response and feedback system taken up by individuals across the organization. So that is what these technology would always continue to. But the basic core of the need, which is, are we having the right strategies? Do we have the right ways of working? Do we have the right protocols? Do we have the right action plans? Do we have the right ecosystem to support everyone together? Do we have the right interdependencies taken care? Do we have the stakeholders taken into account? All those questions still remain, which will be addressed through a staged intervention of something as EFQM. That's what will be.
Thanks, Nitesh, for sharing that. We have been broadcasted live on LinkedIn as well, and we have one question coming on from there. What's the difference between EFQM and ESG? Anyone who would like to add on to this?
There is no difference. We have focused on governance and what we call the contribution to society, by reflecting what's going on around you for 30 years. So in many ways, I think we were one of the first business models that actually built in sustainability. It is all about sustainable performance improvement, and one of the key aspects is, was about your contribution to society, but also how you govern, Are you aware of the risks around you? Are you aware of the impact that you're having as an organization? So many organizations use the model to report on their ESG. So we've got a number of organizations, certainly in the Middle East, that are having to, for the government, produce ESG reports. They're using the actual framework of the model. So, you know, exactly the same concept. Why is ESG important? How do we deal with it? And what results are we delivering? And what do we hope to deliver? I hope that answers the question. It's one for another whole session, I think.
Thanks, Russell, for sharing your insights on that. We have one more coming on the Q&A section is, given that we have change management best practices through PROSCI and other frameworks available, how will EFQM model help in managing change and improvement? And I would add on to that, how does it differ from other business excellence frameworks? So my obvious choice for this would be you, Russell.
Okay, you know, every framework is really useful. Many of the frameworks obviously were built for awards and they were built to be domestic. I think we're probably the most international. You know, just the fact that, for instance, Baldrige only accepts American companies into their domestic awards. But lots of companies have adapted. You know, Tata uses a combination of EFQM and Baldrige. I think ours is probably the newest in terms of where we've adapted in 2020, and obviously we're producing some slight changes going forward next year. So from that point of view, in terms of change, if you once you've reflected using the EFQM model and decided what changes or what improvements you want to make, then absolutely using your own change methodology is absolutely, or one of the, you know, PROSCI or whatever you're using, Cotta, they are absolutely the right things for you. They are great methodologies in helping you actually execute change. So, but you've got to know where you want to change and where you want to go first. And that's really what EFQM does. It really sets the whole environment of where you want to go in the roadmap. And I guess those change methodologies help you execute on that.
Thank you so much, Russell. And in the interest of time, we would not be able to take any more questions, but I would like to assure all the participants and the attendees that all the questions will be answered and you'll receive our responses through your emails. Thank you all the panelists for sharing such a wonderful insight and making this session an interactive and an informative one for all the audience we have. Thanks to all the participants for joining this session, and we hope to see you again as part of our next session. To update you all, we will be soon launching a training program on EFQM where we'll try to cover the nuances of EFQM framework. We are in the process of rolling out the training as EFQM Foundation training and EFQM Assessor training, and you'll hear back from us very soon. Thank you all for being such a lovely audience. Anybody? Thank you so much, Anirudh. Thanks, Russell. Thanks, Rahul.
Thank you, Sumedha. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, participants. Thank you, panelists.
Bobby.
Okay.